Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
We'll talk higher education when Dr. Jim Henderson, president of the University of Louisiana System, joins us when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
I've been doing business with LBIS for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes LBIS a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Promoting workplace safety and family wellness. That's our motto at Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. The Gulf Coast staff is made up of some of the most knowledgeable and hardest working medical professionals in Louisiana. We care about your safety and your bottom line. With 8 convenient locations in the greater Baton Rouge area, our services include injury management, physical exams, medical surveillance, and substance abuse testing. For more information, visit us on the web at gcombr.info and ride the wave to safety.
In Louisiana, every day is a gift. People everywhere wake up ready to face the day, help each other, and pursue our passions. Many of us have built lives along the coast in the oil and gas industry, using leading technologies to safely identify opportunities to invest and grow. Through the ups and downs, there's been no better partner than oil and gas for our communities, the coast, and people like me pursuing our passions. I am Louisiana Oil and Gas.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, president of the University of Louisiana System, and my friend is our guest. Buddy, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, Tim, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
About a year or so ago, I think that you were here. So remind our viewers about the University of Louisiana System, the institutions, the size, the budget, sort of the mission of what you're trying to do.
Well, we got 9 universities, the historically regional universities and a couple of research universities that serve more than 91,500 students across the state. And we just completed our first year in almost a decade where funding was held stable, the TOPS promise was fulfilled, and it gave us a year to really talk about how do we do things as a system. You know, when you think about these institutions, each one has its own culture, its own history, its own traditions, its own alumni base. And sometimes thinking as a collective is a little bit foreign to them. I'm very proud of the work that they've done, talking about how we can collectively solve some big problems for the state of Louisiana, take advantage of some immense opportunities, and really do things the right way for the benefit of all of us.
Really working more together as a system maybe than they had previously, and that brings up a question. One of the things we've heard historically from the critics of funding higher education in Louisiana is that way too much duplication. As you get these institutions to work more closely together and align to a mission of a system, maybe some of that starts to go away.
Well, I think it does, and it also is important that we understand how these institutions are funded. All right, we don't fund programs anymore in Louisiana. The programs are market funded. They're supported by the markets. And so while I'm very keen on eliminating duplication, in fact, we've eliminated over the last few years 381 programs. But most of that has not been necessarily just because of duplication, but because the market didn't support them. The employers didn't want the graduates, the students weren't interested in the programs, and so you have to move forward with the times. I'm proud of what they've done in that regard, but now they're being much more responsive to the regional economies they serve. I think that ends up being a much more efficient operation. And look, we've got the lowest unit cost in the southern region, so that says something about the way that they're doing the business. A
lot to unpack and talk about in that last answer, so let's start with this stability in funding. We'll talk about the legislative session and the 3 special sessions and all of that in segment 2, but one of the things that's always interesting to me, Jim, is this idea of attracting and retaining key faculty, right? When you're in uncertain budget times, when faculty doesn't know necessarily if their positions will be funded, it's hard to attract and keep the best and brightest. Talk about how you've been able to overcome that.
Well, when you look at just its salaries, and depending on the category of the institution, they all have their peer groups we look at, and we range anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 below the market average for faculty. But that's just part of the puzzle. Now, it's an important part, and we've got to find ways to remunerate faculty at a more appropriate level. But there's a lot of attractive benefits to living in Louisiana. We have traditionally a low cost of living. We've got the culture. We've got the food. Good Lord, we have the food. And so there's a lot of reasons that would attract people to Louisiana. But most faculty come because they are appreciated, they're respected, they have the ability to get some intrinsic value from their work. And that's what I'm most proud of at our institutions, is the way they've created cultures that allow those faculty to pursue their craft, to explore their disciplines, and to work in an environment where they're seeing success on the part of students and they're making a difference. I think that's one of the reasons we've been able to keep the faculty we've been able to keep over the last decade.
You talk about those institutions with their own faculties, with their own alumni base, with their own cultures, and you think about the communities where they operate. You think about University of Louisiana Lafayette in Acadiana and the critical importance that it plays. You think about McNeese over in Southwest Louisiana. You think about Southeastern, that for years was one of the fastest growing four-year institutions in the country. And now over 91,000 total students. One of the largest, I assume, systems in the country now. Talk about the size, and then talk a little bit, Jim, about the importance of those individual institutions in those communities.
Well, the way we operate our institutions in Louisiana, we could be like the Floridas or the Alabamas, where you create a management board over each individual institution. And because we don't do that in Louisiana, we have one board that operates these 9 institutions. So it lends itself to some collaborative work, and you see that in program delivery. Southeastern is constantly doing programs with UNO. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we landed DXC technology into the Central Business District of New Orleans.
A critical economic development win.
Unbelievable. But what drew them there was the collaborative relationship they saw between those institutions and with our sister institution, Delgado Community College, of course, the flagship LSU here in Baton Rouge. They saw this common approach to the business of higher ed. They liked that. But at a certain point, you've got institutions that have to be held individually accountable. So I have to achieve this delicate balance of giving them direction from a system level, and at the same time empowering them to meet the needs of their communities and their regional economies. So it's a challenging prospect, but it's a lot of fun, and when you see the results of it, it's very rewarding.
You mentioned the economic development wins. You think about ULL's involvement in some of the economic development wins they've had in the Acadiana region. You think about McNeese and the work it's doing with all the industrial expansion in Southwest Louisiana. They play critical roles. But you, from a system perspective and with your background, have put a lot of attention on what we call workforce development. Right. Not something that you've typically heard in association with four-year universities, but a core part of your mission.
I think historically, four-year universities have shied away from talking about workforce development because it gives them an idea that we're vocationalizing higher education, and we're certainly not. Every program we offer is going to lead somebody to do something else when they graduate. We don't want them to stay at our universities for life. They've got to be productive members of society. Well, that means they can contribute to the culture of a community or to the leadership of a community. And most importantly, they're going to get jobs, they're going to contribute to the tax base, and they're going to give our employers a competitive advantage. And so that means that every day you're working in partnership with leaders from communities, with leaders from business and industry, and ensuring that you're giving them the requisite skills they need, the relevant skill sets they need to be successful. And it's a win-win situation for all of us involved.
You and I have had this conversation often, that my theory has always been that education at all levels exists primarily, maybe not exclusively, but certainly primarily to prepare individuals to participate successfully in the economy. You guys are all over that.
It is. We say we want to prepare graduates for life and career success, and the two are inextricably linked. Right? We want them to be good citizens, and we want them to be able to think critically. We want them to solve problems. We also want them to have a marketable skill set where they can add value to an employer from day one. And when you think about the demands of the 21st century economy and the way that workforce is changing, I don't know if there's more important work that we're doing.
Let's take a break. We come back. I want to talk about the legislature and your involvement there. 3 special sessions, a regular session just this year, and what that's been like from a stress level for you. We're visiting with Dr. Jim Henderson. He's the president of the University of Louisiana System, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
For over a quarter century, Kelly's has operated with honesty, integrity, and above all, safety. Kelly's features a fleet of quality equipment operated by dedicated, safety-minded employees skilled in land clearing, above-ground right-of-way maintenance, vegetation control, station yard and manned facility maintenance, above-ground pipeline support, and more. Kelly's Industrial Services, where pipeline right-of-way maintenance gets done right.
What if I said that whatever good things you build you? And that in this economy, sweat never loses its value? What if I said that there isn't a challenge in the world too great for a craft professional with the right tools? And that the steps that lead from where you are to where you want to be can only be built by you? Build your future at byf.org.
Consumers and property owners with construction projects can have a successful result or regretful experiences that could have been avoided. Before any construction project, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers will claim to be insured or bonded, so always check first. Download our app, LA Contractor, from the Android or Apple Store. Visit our website, lacontractor.org, or contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're here to help before things go wrong. Hire a licensed contractor. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, president of the University of Louisiana System, is our guest. I love to ask this of executives and leaders. What's the day like for you? What is the day-to-day for a major university system president? What do you do?
Well, you know, I'm an early riser, so I get up, usually between 4 and 4:30 in the morning, do a lot of reading, catch up on the events of the day. But I'll be honest, I believe that the most important thing that a leader of any level can do is show presence, to be there. And sometimes with electronic media, we can be present in a virtual sense. But in the last 2 years, I've driven 96,000 miles within the borders of Louisiana to be present on these campuses. Now listen, it's not micromanaging, that's not putting my nose in someone else's business. I get a lot of it.
It's support.
I get a lot of value from being around students, and at the system office, we don't have a lot of students there. So I get a lot of value out of it, but I think it shows these presidents and it shows their faculty, hey, there is somebody in Baton Rouge that's interested in their work, that wants to find out exactly what are the supports that they need and how we can help add value to their work.
And as you mentioned, a real source of energy for you to be around those students.
That's fantastic.
We talked a little bit about funding in the first segment and the fact that we've sort of stabilized it now last year, and then, although it was difficult, we've gotten to the point where you're pretty stable going forward for this fiscal year. But we have defunded higher education in Louisiana more than any other state
led the nation
over the last 10 years or so. And you sort of got into it a little bit, but let's unpack it a little more, Jim. How is what we are doing in Louisiana comparing to the way higher education is being funded, not just in the South, but across the country?
Well, this last decade has been a pretty drastic change, but historically Louisiana has underinvested in higher education, and we measure ourselves mostly against the Southern Region Education Board, and we have the lowest resource base per student among the SRAB institutions. Now, to me, I call that the lowest unit cost of production, which is a great euphemism. It also means that we're being very efficient in the way we run our business. That's not something people think of when they think of Louisiana higher education, is efficiency. But I can tell you by just about any measure, whether it's the percent of state In local expenditures we put on higher education, we rank near the bottom. Whether it's per capita expenditures on higher education, we spend less per capita than the state of Texas. And think about the vast economy of scale they have in Texas. We spend less per capita in support of higher education than they do. Now, that's one side of the equation. The other side of it is, how are we making the use of the resources we have? And how do you measure return on investment? And that's a lot of the conversation that I have with the presidents. We can complain about a lack of funding, or we can do something about it. We're more in control of our destiny than we've ever been. About 75% to 80% of our resources are self-generated. If we're responding to the needs of markets and regional economies, if we're providing value to students, we're going to be just fine. We need that stability from the state. We need the fulfillment of promises like the TOPS promise. But other than that, we're in control of our destiny.
A week or so ago, the legislature finally came together and finalized the deal to renew, I think it's 4.45% of the penny, or 44.5% of one of the pennies in sales tax, which gives you now a more stable funding base going into this next fiscal year. We know that funding was at stake. We know that TOPS was on the chopping block as well. Talk about what that's been like and that involvement with the legislature, because it's been a critically important part of what you've been doing for the last 6 or 8 months. Well,
surprisingly to some, I'm a firm believer that almost every legislator I interact with has the best interest of the state at heart. They really want to do what's right for the constituents that put them in office. Now, that takes very different forms, right? They have different ideologies. They have different philosophies on what the size of government should be. And I'll leave them to that. What I advocate for is the necessity of developing talent for the 21st century economy.
Investing in it.
Absolutely. That we have got, if we're going to be successful, we've got to move from the bottom in educational attainment to near the top. It's a tremendous opportunity for us if we develop that talent. And the other argument for us this time was stability for our institutions, but fulfilling the TOPS promise. TOPS is subject to debate. You can debate the merits of the program, whether it's right size, whether it's targeted on students that have achieved enough merit. I'm open to those conversations. But the time to have that conversation is not during the debate on the appropriations bill, and we determine whether we're going to fulfill a promise we've made to a student.
That you've already made,
That's right. To me, that's sacrosanct. And I was pleased that the legislature found a way to fulfill that TOPS promise. The tax piece to me was not that important. It's important personally, but from a business perspective, that's for others to talk about. But I do know that every version of the budget that was passed that came in below that 4.45% did not fulfill the TOPS promise. And so if that's what it took to do it, I paid 3 cents less for my green tea latte this morning than I did Friday. And if I can pay 3 cents less for that, and we fulfill the TOPS promise, and we invest in talent development, I'll take that deal every day.
It must have been for the entire system, though. And you think about the other higher education boards, Monty Sullivan at LCTCS, you think about the Southern Board, you think about King Alexander and the LSU system. Very stressful time for you guys as presidents as you think about the potential for an even more significant loss of funding.
And at times it's easy to get frustrated with that because you feel like you're defending your mission. And I take time to recharge and think about what we're talking about. We're talking about the scarcity equation, where you have unlimited demands on very limited resources. And when a legislator is asking a question, or a special interest group is advocating for their position, it's not denigrating what you're doing, but it's helping establish these priorities. Now, I'll be honest, I believe that higher education has been under-prioritized in our budget. If we keep the conversation about that prioritization, we talk in terms of return on investment, and we show what the results of investment in our work can result in for the state, I think we win that argument every day. You can't get frustrated with the rhetoric, right? Let's focus on the policy and let's focus on doing the right thing.
And you've been able to do an amazing job doing that. I want to take a break and I want to come back and talk about the future. Where are we headed? Where is the University of Louisiana headed? What is your goal for the system in general? We're visiting with Dr. Jim Henderson. He is the president of the University of Louisiana System, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Passion, experience, safety. These are what set Arkell Constructors apart as a premier general contractor. At Arkell Constructors, our goal is to exceed our clients' expectations, whether it's commercial, industrial, or facility maintenance. We have the team and processes in place to provide a solution for you. To us, every project is a resume for our future. Arkell Constructors, the solution for your next building project.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
It might be one of the most efficient, most effective methods of communications we've ever used.
For more than 25 years, the TJC Group has been helping industry communicate and build relationships with communities, elected officials, and governmental agencies. We are the leading firm in the U.S. for the development, management, and facilitation of industry-based community advisory panels.
Whether you're building a new facility or you manage an existing business, let us put our community and governmental relations experience to work for you.
The TJC Group, facilitating solutions for business and industry.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Dr. Jim Henderson, president of the University of Louisiana System, is our guest. So we've talked about the institutions in the system. We've talked about funding of the system and the way you are maximizing the dollars that you have at your disposal. I want to talk about the future. Because I've known you for a long, long time, and because you and I have had great conversations over the years about a lot of topics, I know you are focused on world class.
That's right.
Over the course of my life, I have been so frustrated in Louisiana to be on the bottom of every good list and the top of every bad list. And our conversations about that is always, well, if we can just move up a few spots, right? Why can't we talk about being world class in Louisiana, Jim? Why can't we talk about being in the top 5 in America in everything we do, and particularly higher education? So let's get into that conversation. What is your big vision for the University of Louisiana system?
Well, you know, every stop I've made in this higher ed journey, when I was at Bossier Parish Community College, I said, you know, our goal should be to be, at that time we needed to grow. We want to be the fastest growing community college in the nation. We were for 5 consecutive years, in that top 5 at least, and #1 a couple of years. I got to Northwestern State. I said, we want to be the nation's premier regional university. And so I come to the University of Louisiana System, and I work with these 9 presidents, and you know, university presidents can have egos.
Sure.
And I said, well, why don't we take advantage of that? And we put them together, and we created a strategic framework to govern our system, to direct our system going forward into the future. And I said, guys, we got to be audacious. Why would we aspire to being anything less than the absolute best we can be? Let's don't measure ourselves against where we've been, and let's don't measure ourselves against these peer states, right? We say, where should we be? What are the possibilities? And let's measure ourselves against those possibilities. They came up with a set of aspirations, and one of which I'm very proud of, says that by the year 2025, we're going to produce the most educated generation in Louisiana's history. And you think about the impact of that on economic competitiveness, on quality of life,
on eliminating poverty.
Eliminating poverty, reduction in reliance on government for your livelihood, reduced incarceration. It has so many benefits for all of us. It actually drives the quality of life in our communities. And that was an aspiration that was worthy of the state of Louisiana, certainly worthy of our institutions. I was proud that they delivered that. But they went a little bit further. We talked about developing even more public-private partnerships. When you look on the I-20 technology corridor that exists between CenturyLink on the Monroe side, and you come all the way over to now General Dynamics was CSRA and the Cyber Research Park, and what's happening in between there on that 100 miles, if you will, anchored by Louisiana Tech, supported by Grambling State, Bossier Parish Community College, Delta Community College, ULM, Northwestern State just coming about an hour south. They are driving a technology renaissance that's going to transform that regional economy. You can say the same on that I-10, I-12 corridor where we're seeing we have this bread and butter industry, from the petrochemical industry to the waterborne transportation industry. You have so much opportunity for growth in Louisiana. Why don't we set that aspiration that's worthy of our people?
And again, it's being the best in America at what we do. We have the resources and the things that occur naturally here. We can make that happen, and I am so pleased to hear that work being started. You mentioned Bossier Parish Community College and your time there, your relationship with Dr. Monty Sullivan in the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, another great leader for our state there. Talk about how you're working with that system, Jim, and why it's important.
You know, Monty and I are like brothers. We've been together for a long time. In fact, when I was just getting started in Workforce Development Department of Labor, he was an assistant chancellor at Delta Community College. I had a workforce need I had to get solved in Monroe. Monty was the first guy I talked to, and we've been best friends ever since because we were guys that were focused on solutions. When you look at our systems, when you are approaching things systemically, then you can achieve some policy advances that allow students to move from one system to the other much easier. You align curriculum. You get the benefits of having faculty sit at the same table, talking through common issues and challenges, advancing together. The relationship between individual community colleges and our universities, and certainly between the community college system and the University of Louisiana system, those relationships have never been more robust or profitable for the state.
And all those signs point to good things and all of the mission for both of those systems. Let's talk about engagement of the business community. We've got about a minute left here. What's your message to the business community as you strive for a world class at the University of Louisiana system?
Well, you know, the business community gets it probably at a deeper level than anyone else. They see the impact of automation, of artificial intelligence, how that's emerging and being a part of the business plan, robotics. They know that talent is the secret to success in the future. And we want to be their partner in developing that talent to ensure that number one, they can be successful against their own metrics, but two, they have a competitive advantage against the markets they're competing with. And it's a global marketplace anymore. You're not just competing against employers in Mississippi and Texas. You're competing against employers in South America and in Europe and in Asia. And we think talent is the answer to those competitive challenges. We think we can be the engine that provides that talent.
Can we invest appropriately in higher education going forward? Can we structure this government to allow the flexibility to be able to do that? 15 seconds.
Just like anyone else, we have insatiable needs when it comes to funding. But if we have the right policy environment, if we're empowered to be in control of our destiny, then we can be very successful. Stability, fulfill the top's promise, we've won those two things. Now it's about strategic reinvestment and talent development.
You know, as we've mentioned, if we set real priorities and we fund them adequately, we can demand excellence from them. That's what will move us off of the bottom of every bad list and toward the top of the good list, and that's where we need to be. Dr. Jim Henderson, my friend,
thank you,
always
Tim.
A great pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.